About 1 year ago, I was getting tired of playing everything on my Xbox Series X. Also, around that time, Lethal Company was getting huge. Unfortunately for me, this is only a game you can play on a PC. Up to that point, the best computer in my house was a MacBook Pro, and I've never owned anything that could perform better than it. So I finally decided enough was enough and that it was time to switch to PC gaming. But there was a restriction on getting this PC. I had to make it relatively cheap. No spending over $1,000 like those fancy PCs people are making on YouTube. I started by looking at pre-builds on stores like Best Buy, and there was no way I could afford any of these. Like, look at this PC. It's the cheapest gaming computer at Best Buy, and it doesn't even have a graphics card, and it's still priced at $650, which is just crazy. Then I started looking at building my own, but with a pretty tight budget, I couldn't get anything too amazing within my price range. So I started losing hope. Do I just save up more money? Will I just never have a PC? Well, that's what I was thinking, until I came across a hidden gem. Old office PCs. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Really? An office PC? What kind of joke is that? Let me explain. These old office PCs are now being thrown out and being sold for relatively cheap. Although these office PCs might not have good enough components for the companies, they actually have pretty competent components that are still very capable of gaming. For example, look at this almost complete Dell Optiplex. It has an Atrium i7, which is still very capable of gaming, and 16GB of DDR4. The only thing is missing is storage, and SSDs are relatively cheap. Slap in a relatively good graphics card into this and you got a pretty competent gaming computer. These computers are very capable of 1080p and even sometimes 1440p gaming, which is just crazy for the price. But now, what office PC should I get? As I researched, I came across multiple models of office PCs, but a lot of these had problems with them. Some were way too old to handle any modern game, some were physically too small to fit a graphics card into, and one really common thing was that the power supplies in these computers were extremely weak, being unable to handle any good graphics card. But one day as I was researching, I encountered a new PC model. It was a Lenovo ThinkStation P520. It had relatively beefy CPU options, a 900-watt power supply which is unreal, good I/O, NVMe SSD support, multiple PCIe lanes. It was everything that I could wish for. So therefore, I pressed buy on the specific one I wanted, and now here it is in person. So this is a Lenovo ThinkStation P520 that I bought in December of 2023. It's a workstation that released in 2017, I believe. It's a pretty beefy machine, so let me walk you through it right now. So in the front, you can see there's a CD-ROM, obviously, your power button, 4 USB 3 ports, I believe, SD card reader, and a headphone jack. So pretty good for an I/O actually. So okay, it's a little hard to get in camera, but here is the back I/O. It has your PS2 ports, pretty ancient. It has like this some kind of cover for like a VGA like port. I'm pretty sure they just like reuse this from like a different Lenovo computer. And since this computer doesn't have integrated graphics, they just covered it up. That's just my guess. I don't really know what it is. Here there's 4 USB 3 ports, Ethernet, and 2 USB 2 ports. And obviously here you have your 3.5mm jacks for your mic, left and right speakers. Hey guys, it's me editing the video. Just that I should clarify this, I have no idea what the hell I just said in this clip, calling them left and right. The green one is an audio line out port, and the blue one is an audio line in port. I don't know why I said this in the video, but thought I should clarify. On the bottom, this is my graphics card. I'll get into what it is specifically in like a minute. Bottom, this is just your Wi-Fi card because this computer did not come with Wi-Fi. Then here, it's just your power supply. So let's go inside the inside now because that's where actually everything is. So yeah, let's open this up. So this P520 actually has a latch opening system. You just open this and then pull this out. It's actually pretty satisfying. There's obviously a lot here, so let me walk you through it one by one. So under the CPU cooler, I have a Intel Xeon W2145, which is an 8-core 16-thread CPU. I would say it's pretty comparable to like an i9-9900. So this computer actually only takes Intel Xeon processors, specifically the W21 series and the W22 series. And as I just said, this one has a 2145, which is actually pretty high-end CPU, I guess you can say, for this computer. But again, there are way beefier ones meant for the system. I believe there's like one with like over 20 cores maybe. I might be like completely off, but there is like way beefier CPUs that you can put into this, because this was supposed to technically be a server PC, but this 8-core CPU does the job. I'm not like running a server or anything off of this PC. I'm just using it to game, so it works out pretty good for me. So I'm pretty happy about that CPU. So here I have 2 sticks of 8GB memory, totaling up to 16GB. Its speed is technically 2,933 megahertz, but the CPU, its max speed is just 2633 megahertz for RAM. So it's 2933 megahertz if you buy the W22 CPUs I was talking about earlier. So this is limited to 2666 right now. So I kind of wasted a little money buying a faster RAM when the CPU can't even handle it. So I kind of regret it. Here you can see 8 DIMM slots for RAM. It actually supports up to quad channel, which is, I believe, something the core series can't handle. I'm pretty sure it only goes up to dual channel. So that's one of the benefits of these server CPUs. They support quad channel memory. I know the performance gain isn't that big, but it's still a performance game, so you can't really complain. Hey guys, before we move on, I forgot to mention this one thing during the actual tour. This P520 actually only takes ECC memory. So what that means is that like this is like a specific type of memory meant for like servers, which like detects like small little errors within RAM and tries to correct them. Consumer RAM doesn't do this, it's only ECC. So it's actually pretty beneficial for people, but the only drawback of this is that it is more expensive than normal RAM. So you do have to keep that in mind when buying RAM for the system. I actually messed up when I first got the system. I bought normal RAM and it wouldn't boot, so I had to get ECC memory. So that I should just let you guys know before you make this purchase too. So this graphics card is a RX 6700 XT. I actually originally had a RTX 2060 inside this computer, but recently I got like a really good deal for this like custom PC for like $270. It had this RX 6700 XT at Goodwill, actually, believe it or not. And so I just swapped out my 2060 for this, and I've been happy since. So for storage, this computer actually has a lot of potential for storage. You can see in the bottom, there's actually a lot of SATA ports. I believe it's up to 6, but one of them is occupied by the DVD drive, obviously. It also has 2 M.2 slots, but only one is occupied. I literally only have one SSD in this entire computer because I don't really need that much storage, because I'm not like running like a server or anything. I'm just using it to game. So in here I have a 1TB WD black SSD. I believe it's called the SN850X. It covers my needs, so nothing really important. You can just stick any SSD into this and it'll probably work. So I'm happy with my SSD. I just removed the graphics card and the Wi-Fi card to show you how many PCI slots this computer actually has. So I told you this is a server computer, so it is expected to have this many. So if you're into that stuff, I would say this is a pretty good selection. You got like your PCI X8, PCI X16, PCI X4, another PCI X16, and a PCI slot, not PCIe. So you have a PCI slot here, which is pretty cool, and another PCI X4 slot. So this computer is actually pretty nice when it comes to your PCI options. So yeah, if you need a lot of PCI slots, this computer is pretty good. Okay, so I just reinstalled the graphics card and the Wi-Fi card, so let's continue on with this computer. So I replaced the OEM fan in front with these two 120mm Thermalright RGB fans, which is I believe like $15 for like a 3-pack, which is actually pretty good. And these like fans are like nice, they're not like terrible. So I actually recommend it. I'll put it on screen. If you want it, you can go get it. I actually recommend these fans because these are really good for the price. So yeah, I'm happy with these fans. As you can see, these fans, they don't really have like a screw hole to put like these fans in through. The OEM fan, it has some kind of like bracket. I ended up breaking off because I wanted to put these like fans in. So I actually ended up super gluing these fans in. Call me crazy, but I legit couldn't do anything else. I tried using zip ties, but I could not figure out how to like actually get through. I'll put pictures up. People have done it. I just don't know how. And so after like an hour of like trying, I just decided, you know what, I'm not gonna take off these fans either way, so I might as well just super glue them on. So yeah, I mean, it's been working fine so far. I'm not really complaining. So yeah, if it works, it works. You know what I mean? So over here, I have a RGB and fan hub. I'm gonna be for real with you. For mine, it's only a RGB hub because I need to find a way to control these three fans. The fan header would not work. I could not reach the CPU fan header over here, which it needs. I tried connecting it to the front fan header over here, but it would just give me an error saying there's like an error with the front fan. Then these just like blasted like 100%. So I didn't really want to deal with that, so I just powered it with the SATA cable, daisy chained these two fans into this one port, plug this one into this back header, and the CPU fans with a CPU header. So this is strictly just the RGB hub, as I said. This motherboard also doesn't have a RGB header, no surprise, so I had to get a remote to actually control these RGB fans, but it's been working fine, so I can't really complain. So about the power supply, this is actually a very odd case. I know companies like Dell with their Optiplexes, they have their own power supplies along with their own cables for the motherboard. But the case with those, you can actually like buy like adapters to actually use a normal to use a normal ATX power supply with those Optiplexes. This one is really weird. Let me just show you. So this is the P520 power supply. This is actually a really beefy power supply. It's a 900 watt 80 plus platinum power supply, so it's actually really beefy for what it is. But you can see here why it's odd. It's delivering power through the entire computer through this single connector. Let me just show you. Here, you can see the power supply just plugs into this. Then like it delivers power through the entire system. Here you can see the power supply cables for the GPU is coming out of the motherboard, not the power supply. It's kind of odd why Lenovo went with this approach. I get they want people to use their own power supplies, but come on, like you could just done something like Dell, use different cables. Come on, like I can't even use this in a different build. Like I have to use it specifically with the P520, which is pretty disappointing because this is a really good power supply. I would like love to be able to use this in like different devices, but sadly I can't. So this concludes the P520 tour. Now I want to talk about the cost. As I said earlier, I bought this of December of 2023, so prices probably have come down, but for the stuff I paid, I will be comparing it to today's prices, just to show you what you could have technically bought this system for today. So I bought this PC bare bones. It came with the CPU, the motherboard, CD-ROM, power supply, and the case. I believe it was around $200. I think something around that. So and then I have to buy everything else like the RAM and the graphics card. So first thing I bought was this SSD. I got a really good deal on it. You probably won't find this deal, so take this with like a really like big grain of salt because I got like an amazing deal on this. As I said earlier, this is a WD Black SN850X. It normally retails for around maybe like, I don't remember the last time I checked, it's probably around like $100 MSRP, but I got this brand new for 40 bucks off of some guy on Craigslist, which is pretty crazy. And like I'm still like pretty bewildered on how I got this SSD for so cheap. So I'm really happy. That brought down price a lot. So if you want to recreate this, you might need to buy a different SSD for similar price, but that's just what I got. Next I bought the RAM. This is 2.6 of 8 gigabytes, 2933 megahertz, as I said earlier. This cost me 40 bucks. I bought this from I believe ATEC, I think that was the company. This is only 2 sticks, obviously. I could have technically bought 4 sticks, but I just wanted 2 sticks. I also could have technically saved some money if I actually bought the proper RAM speed, but whatever. So for the graphics card, as I said earlier, I did pull this out of a PC from a really good deal. So I don't really know how to appraise this, but I will do it with my RTX 2060 instead. So I bought the RTX 2060 for I believe $175 in 2023. It was a 12 gigabyte model from EVGA. So I think it was a pretty good deal at the time. I don't know how much the price has gone down now, but it's probably a lot. You can probably find a better graphics card for like $175, like a RX 6600. I think that's around $180, maybe cheaper. But right now I have this RX 6700 XT, but I don't really know what to say how much this costed, because obviously I pulled this out of a PC. But I'll just say I think the average price for one of these is $250, so I'll just go with $250. So for the Wi-Fi card, I ended up paying like $27 for this, and I'm gonna be like entirely serious with you. I don't really use this often. I just use Ethernet, so it kind of was a waste of money, but I got included in the cost. So if you use Ethernet, just don't bother buying this unless you really need like wireless capabilities. So that's the entire cost of the PC. So for like $600, I would say it's like not a bad deal for like... Okay, let's try and see how much this PC would cost if we tried to buy it today. Ooh. Yeah, prices have gone up a lot. I'll talk a little bit more about this later, but as you can see, it's going to cost way more to replicate my build. So that's the entire cost of the PC. Let's actually play some games on it now. Alright, our first game is Forza Horizon 4. If you're wondering why I didn't test Forza Horizon 5 or 6, it's because 6 didn't release when I was recording this, and I just simply didn't own 5 when I was recording this either, so yeah, deal with it. This test was conducted with Forza Horizon 4's max settings, except motion blur. During races, the PC averaged around 105 FPS. However, in the open world environment, it dropped down to around 82 frames per second. However, in my opinion, for a relatively modern game, and especially for max settings, I don't think that's too bad of a result, especially for a AAA game. Alright, the next game is Fortnite. This was tested with high meshes in performance mode DirectX 11 instead of DirectX 12 because this video was recorded before it released. In a solo battle royale game, it averaged around 170 frames per second. However, I wouldn't consider this result bad. Even though it's not like 240 frames per second, we have to consider that this was tested with an AMD card, which is notoriously known for being way worse than Nvidia in DirectX 11 games, and especially Fortnite. So if this test was conducted with a similar Nvidia card like the 3070, it most likely would have performed better, but it's not that bad. Alright, the next game is Grand Theft Auto 5. This was recorded in the legacy version with maxed out settings. When playing in offline mode, it averaged around 75 frames per second. And to be honest, I'm not sure why it performed so badly. I expected this computer to run much better than just 75 frames per second. I honestly don't know what went wrong with this test. I tested it multiple times, maybe it's just like a bad result, but it kept averaging around the 70 to 80 range. So I'm not exactly sure why it's performing so poorly. This isn't even the enhanced version, this is just a legacy version. So I'm not exactly sure why it performed so bad, but whatever. Alright, the next game is Marvel Rivals. This test was conducted with mostly low settings without any sort of upscaling, such as FSR. On average, any multiplayer match, it averaged around 86 frames per second. There isn't really anything noteworthy to talk about Marvel Rivals' performance here, so I guess we can just move on to the next game. Alright, the next game is Halo Infinite. This test was conducted with mostly high settings. When playing multiplayer, it averaged around 120 frames per second, which is basically what I expected. This is a pretty old game, but it's also pretty graphically demanding, so I'm not too disappointed with this result. It actually seems pretty expected. Alright, the next game is Rocket League. This was tested with mostly medium settings, and in a casual 2v2 multiplayer match, it averaged around 289 frames per second. This game can basically run on everything, so it's not a surprise it performs so well here. So, what's the conclusion? As seen with our benchmarks, the PC can actually handle a lot of games on high settings. It's actually pretty impressive considering that the CPU in this computer is almost 10 years old. It's still very competent for its age, and I feel like a lot of people would be satisfied with it. However, the bigger question is whether if it is worth using an old office PC for gaming. In my opinion, I don't think so, at least in my case. As seen earlier, if you want to buy this PC, it'll cost almost $800 to recreate, which is definitely not considered cheap. It's especially worse because you have to consider the whole reason why someone would consider using an office PC is because it is supposedly cheaper. Even when I first bought this for $500, I still don't really think it's worth it. Why? I think it's for one really big reason. It's very limited in terms of upgradability. This is on the LGA 2066 platform, which is a server platform, not for standard consumer CPUs. For the P520, it's limited to the Xeon lineup, meaning that upgrades will be very expensive. Although it's a very good server CPU, if you're looking to it just for gaming, I wouldn't really bother. Also, they don't even make new CPUs for this platform anywhere, like typical Intel, so you can't even really get that good of a CPU for this computer anymore. Also, for the P520 as well as other office PCs, they use their own proprietary stuff, so you can't even upgrade if you really wanted to, like putting a new motherboard into this case. Although earlier I mentioned that the performance on this PC is actually pretty good, it's aging very quickly and I feel like a lot of people would want to upgrade soon, so I don't think you should invest that much money to something that you would need to upgrade either way. So to sum it all up, if you want to upgrade stuff, you would have to essentially replace everything. One of the biggest benefits about a PC is that you can upgrade part by part and keep up to date with your components, like with AMD's AM5 platform. However, this PC basically defeats that benefit. You're already investing a lot of money into something that will have no pathway for future upgrades. And also, if you want to sell this PC, I feel like it will be very difficult just because it's such a niche model and it doesn't even look that good. Although the P520 has a lot of benefits like with its PCIe support, if you're looking to it just for gaming like me, I feel like it's unnecessary and just adds to the cost. Despite what's been said, if you're looking for a pretty competent server build, I feel like the P520 is a pretty good option. However, this doesn't mean all old gaming office PC builds are useless. If you need something for dirt cheap, like around $200, you can get an old cheap Optiplex and stick in a graphics card, and you can get a pretty decent machine for really cheap. I feel like if you're going to be spending more than $400, I wouldn't really bother with office PCs. I would just look into the used market, whether it's buying a used pre-built or building a PC with used parts. These PCs will last you way longer just because it's much more upgradable, as it doesn't have the proprietary stuff that these office PCs shove into their systems. So essentially, I believe that if you have an extremely tight budget, I would go for an office PC build, especially because you can get a lot of performance for a very small amount of money. However, if you're willing to spend a decent amount of money, I would just look into building my own PC or buying a used pre-built. But you know what? That doesn't even matter. I have the most pimped out office PC anyways. Are you jealous?
Okay. I love you, I do.